There are many sad things in life. The death of a relative.
Sorry that your grandma died. Rip grandma!
The death of a famous celebrity. And of course, the death of your favourite MMO. And we all know which one of the three hurts the most. So in today's video, I want to go back in the past and have a look at some of these old MMOs that were either cancelled, abandoned, or just simply died.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
And I don't mean dead in the sense of, oh, it's only got 5,000 players or less. I'm talking a complete exodus of players, the studio shut down, the game is just no more. And if you are the sort of person who likes to get nostalgic about games which are no longer relevant, then may I suggest subscribing to my channel, because that's sort of what I do around here. Look at dead irrelevant games. And whilst I've got your attention, let's add a little bit more spice to the mix. If this video gets 1,069 likes, I will go back and review whichever dead MMO gets mentioned the most in the comment section below. But anyway, that's the intro done. Let's go take a look at our first deceased title. Now, obviously, as much as I'd like to go over every dead MMO ever, I would severely risk draining my social battery. So I'm going to keep this list nice and simple and kick it off with the oldest on the list, which is Asherons Call. Released on November 2nd, 1999, it is very much a boomer's MMO. It was developed by Turbine Entertainment Software and published by Microsoft. In its first year in the United States alone, it sold 57,000 copies and earned revenue of over 2.64 million. It also boasted 80,000 players, and its main competition was of course Ultimate Online and EverQuest. The game was innovative for its time with dynamic lighting and a day and night cycle. You also lost half your gold if you died, and there was no load screens in the main open world. It even boasted one of the biggest in-game worlds, even compared to some modern game standards. So what went wrong for this title? How did it lose its audience? Essentially, it just fizzled out. Being third to Ultimate Online and EverQuest didn't help in sales, and then we had the likes of Dark Ages of Camelot and World of Warcraft release. It carried on for 16 years, with the last 2 years being in maintenance mode with no real updates. In that 16 years, it did release a sequel, and that came in the form of Asherons Call 2, which was a bit more graphically enhanced and more RPG based. And funny enough, that one also closed down. Even in its last days, it still boasted thousands of players and was fondly remembered by many, mainly for taking people's MMO cherries. The servers were officially closed down on January 31st, 2017. But it's not all doom and gloom. If you do really want to play this game still, there are private servers you can play on. They're just not official ones, so don't tell anyone I told you to play on them. It's a secret. Next up is one of the most short-lived MMORPGs you'll come across, and that is of course LEGO Universe. It released October 2010. It was live for just over a year until it was closed down in January 2012. For a MMO to be financially successful, it helps have a core player base who are willing to spend money. So a MMORPG aimed at kids with a subscription model, I mean, what could go wrong? It might not seem like a big deal, but when little Timmy's got to pay $40 for the box fee and then $10 a month on subscription, I mean, that's quite wild by modern day MMO standards.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
In terms of gameplay, it was an interesting take on an MMO. You had player housing, which you could obviously build yourself because this is a LEGO game. It also had questionable action combat, quests in which could pretty much be completed in a day, and a severe lack of worlds on release that could barely make a solar system, let alone a universe. It's not to say that the game didn't have potential, but it just released very rushed. It could have had a bit longer in the oven. And what really didn't help was the beta release of a little known game called Minecraft. So which title do you think will be more appealing to kids? The one with occasional building when you go to do housing, or the one which its whole premises is building? I can just imagine a kid being like, "Mom, can we play Minecraft?" And she'd be like, "No, you already have Minecraft at home," and they produced this LEGO universe. The death of this game basically came down to the fact that it wasn't financially viable, though truth be told, if they had lowered the box price and the sub price, there's a good chance this game could have been successful. I mean, after all, the game did eventually go free to play and it drew in 2 million players. But sadly, it wasn't enough, LEGO lost faith in this project and the plug was pulled. WildStar development started back in 2005 under Carbine Studios, which consisted of 17 former Blizzard employees. It was a sci-fi fantasy MMO with a very similar graphic style to another popular title.
Drink and honor.
It was released on June 3rd, 2014 with a subscription model. However, you could purchase the subscription with in-game currency. It initially got very positive reviews, people enjoyed the quirky storyline, they enjoyed the 40-man raids, and they even enjoyed the 40-man PvP arenas. During early development, NCSoft would go on to acquire Carbine Studios, and we all know how much NCSoft like killing MMOs. Naturally, as the game got older, it was put under the microscope by NCSoft, and a few changes were made to try and improve the game's performance. One of the changes they made was that they removed the subscription model and made it a free-to-play MMO. This saw an influx of players, which actually had a knock-on effect, and this was that the servers couldn't hold the capacity of all the players wanting to play. So what did they do? Well, they just span up some new servers for these new players to go to. And we all know how that works in the long run. By adding more servers, they never truly addressed the real problem, which was the capacity of them. Instead, what they did was they just kept splitting the community, making it seem like it was smaller and smaller each time. If anything, it served as a perfect lesson on how to manage your servers. One of the other things they tried to do to try and help streamline the services was that they got rid of the PvP servers. They converted them to PvE servers. Which, to be fair, PvP was severely neglected in the first place from what I've heard, so wasn't necessarily a huge impact, but it kind of signalled where they were going with this title. And that was down the fucking toilet. Eventually though, NCSoft do what they do best. They looked at the financials and said, it's not profitable enough. The last 2 years of WildStar was essentially maintenance mode, and then NCSoft went ahead and pulled the plug on the 28th of November 2018. RIP. It's hard to believe that there's actually been 3 Star Wars MMO RPGs, but there has been, and 2 of them died. Which is also very tragic. Now, I won't bore you with the story of what happened to Star Wars Galaxies, simply because I've already covered it off on this channel. I'll leave a link in the top right. But I will happily tell you what happened to Clone Wars Adventures. This free-to-play MMO was released on the 15th of September 2010. Although it was free to play, believe it or not, there was a membership you could pay for, which gave you greater access to different furnitures, clothing, mini games, equipment, and game areas. You'd think with all those microtransactions, it would have been a EA title, but surprisingly, it was actually developed and published by Sony Online Entertainment. There was over 30 mini games to participate in, there were social hubs, there were guilds, there was housing. It was truly a remarkable MMO for what it was. The game was designed to go hand in hand with the TV show to try and drive up interest.
Just like a simulation.
The target audience was obviously children, but given the gritty nature of Clone Wars, I wouldn't be surprised if a few adults snuck on to play this title. In 2012, the title reached 10 million registered players worldwide, and that's pretty impressive. But sadly, due to a lack of content and no one buying the membership, the game just wasn't financially viable, and a lot of its audience were maturing and just simply moving on to more complex games. So on the 31st of March 2014, the game was axed. But on the plus side, if anyone is looking to relive their childhood, there is a single player emulator you can go on, and yeah, it's a offline MMO now, which is fun. Now for a more modern Shutdown, we have GloriaVictis, which was a MMORPG with an emphasis on realism. I actually got to play this title. If I'm being honest, it was more like Bannerlords with open world PvP. It was also full loot, which meant when you died, you lost all your gear, and we know how much MMORPG players like that scenario. There were 3 factions to choose from, and the idea was you were constantly at war with each other. There was also safe zones where people couldn't attack you, and that had more PvE elements about it, and also allowed you to go and like pick wood and stuff so you can craft your weapons. And if the open world sieging is too much of a strain or there's just not enough going on, there was also battlegrounds that you can take part in, where if you died, you got to keep your gear, so that was a positive. The gameplay wasn't actually that bad. I think the thing that it suffered from the most was just that it didn't have enough players to support its large map. Having persistent PvP only works if there are other players to actually PvP against. From my personal experience, I don't think the combat was that bad. It's certainly not the worst I've played, and I could see it having potential. Black Eye Games, the developer behind this title, consisted of 15 people, so you can understand the strain that they were under to create a vast MMORPG. But ultimately, the title was just not financially viable. They were losing money, and they didn't have a big enough team to try and support it, which led to the studio shutting down, along with the servers. On the 7th of February 2023, it officially left early access. And on the 31st of October 2023, the servers officially closed down. When it comes to MMOs which people probably never knew existed, The Matrix Online probably takes top spot. It was originally developed by Monolith Productions and later on Sony Online Entertainment. You might recognise their name when it comes to dead MMOs. It was officially released on March 22nd, 2005 and was only accessible to the mega chads with PCs. Given the size of MMOs and the usual backlog of lore that they have, it seems odd to base a whole MMO on a movie franchise which had no real backstory either. It was just 3 movies and some comic books that they span off alongside them. But this was the golden age of MMOs, and everyone was making them because they thought they were very profitable at the time. You also have to remember that the 2nd and 3rd Matrix movie came out in the same year, and that was 2003, 2 years before this game. So it was an odd decision is what I'm trying to say. I don't understand why it deserved the MMO, but it did and it got one, even if everyone's interest in the Matrix had died down. The Matrix Online had a variety of classes to choose from and 3 different factions that you could join. The combat was a hybrid tab target / rock paper scissors, but the most unique and impressive thing about this title was the real-time events which occurred, which were actually controlled by the developers themselves. However, as impressive as some of these aspects were, it was quite a niche title in itself, and numbers started to dwindle. And let's not forget, it was the golden age of MMOs. Why would you play The Matrix Online when you had the likes of World of Warcraft, Star Wars Galaxies, Guild Wars? If only they'd been more patient with their release, they could have got some big top influencers to promote their title.
What is the Matrix? Probably the question I am asked most, and you are the fish. Sometimes he'll give you some food to eat. Life's not too bad in the fish tank. Until you try to escape. And the Matrix is constructed with glass walls on all sides. You break out of the Matrix. I'm waiting for you.
Yeah, maybe not. The service was officially shut down in August 2009, and it had less than 500 active players. Crowfall is a prime example that a successful Kickstarter doesn't always necessarily mean a successful game. The campaign was headed by Gordon Walton and J. Todd Coleman, who did such games as Star Wars Galaxies, Ultima Online, The Sims Online. Hang on, aren't all these games dead? Why would anyone give these guys money if they keep producing dead games? Anyway, different matter, different topic. Let's just carry on. It was dubbed as a hardcore PvP MMORPG, and we know how popular those are. The game officially launched July 2021. It did, however, have quite a decent character creator. It had a good skill tree, the combat actually looked like fun, and of course you can play as a tiny hamster, so you know, plus points there. Another unique aspect of this game was that it had procedurally generated worlds. The idea was these worlds would have a limited time campaign. These can vary from 1 to 3 to 6 months, and it would go through like a seasonal progression, and at the end the world will be deleted and you'll be free to go to a new world. So I guess it's a way to keep the PvP fresh. Now, another interesting thing which happened with this title was that it actually got bought out. Monumental, another indie studio, bought the rights to Crowfall. But even with this acquisition, the game still went on to close down on November 22nd, 2022. There hasn't been any official updates since the closure, but there are rumours that they might just shut down to carry on development. And if you go to the Monument website, they do boast about owning Crowfall, but as you can clearly see, it's offline. Pirates of the Caribbean Online was first announced on April 26, 2005. It was Disney's attempt at a MMO based on Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Caribbean. Caribbean.
It's Pirates of the Caribbean, right? I'm not dumb for thinking that. It was originally set to release during the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie, but had a few delays. So many that it actually came out after the third movie, on October 31st, 2007. During the original announcement of the game, it was set to be free to play, although that would only give you access to 1/3 of the game and you would get banner ads, so not really a big deal. However, upon release, the sub fee was announced at $9.95, and if you got the free to play version, you were restricted to level 8, max level was 50. You'd also get pop-ups telling you to upgrade your account, so yeah, not great. On release, the game was actually praised. People liked the quirkiness of the story, they liked seeing their favourite characters in MMO form, and there's a lot of customization and some sea battles. You know, it was a good old jolly fun time. But as time went on, the game would sadly become quite neglected. Disney at the time owned several other MMO projects, including one infamous, Club Penguin. Now, it's worth noting that Disney acquired Club Penguin back in 2007 for $700 million. $350 million was paid initially, with another $350 million based on bonuses if the original owners met certain growth targets. And as popular as Pirates of the Caribbean Online was, it just didn't have that Club Penguin money about it. So in September 2013, the game was closed down. And honestly, it's a shame because as far as IPs go, I feel like Pirates of the Caribbean is a decent one. I mean, just look at what they did with Sea of Thieves, and they even had Pirates of the Caribbean DLC for that, and it was very popular. Instead, what do we have? Ah yes, Skull and fucking Bones. Jesus Christ. The good news is though, 2 years after the closure of the game, a fan revival got made, which is called The Legends of Pirates Online, and it's free to play and completely unofficial. But it's still up and running to this day, so hopefully Disney don't care. Let's be real here, the death of an MMO is tragic for one true reason, and that's because usually it means a death of a community. With it, all the memories that were built together suddenly vanish, and their friends go in separate directions. And I also think that's why a lot of these old games end up being on emulators or private servers, just so they can try and rekindle that community, bring together that old feeling that they once had during those years. Now obviously I've missed a lot of games off this list because there's a long list of closed MMOs and it's quite tragic. So if you do want a part 2 to this video, smash that like button so I know that people are actually interested in seeing that. I'll be honest, I've got about 25 other games I could have mentioned. There's a lot on this list. But hey, thank you for watching, thank you for getting this far, like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye for now.